Welcome back. Namibia's celebration of African Day of Decentralisation, Local Governance and Local Development on the 9th of August to be celebrated in Nkurenkuru underscores its commitment to enhancing local governance and development across its 14 regions. The event aims to showcase the advancements made in local administration and policies that promote community resilience. This initiative encompasses various aspects such as strengthening value addition in industries, promoting sustainable agriculture, and striking a balance between urban infrastructure development and the preservation of rural heritage. However, despite these efforts, there are certain areas that require additional attention in order to fully leverage the benefits of decentralization for local development. To further discuss this topic and delve into Namibia's efforts in decentralization, we are now joined by Mr. Godwin Sikabongo, the Director of Decentralization Coordination. Sir, good evening and thank you so much for joining us here on the Daily Roundup.
Good evening, Madam, and good evening to the listeners.
Perhaps you can start by talking to us about how Namibia's celebration of the African Day of Decentralization contributes to Namibia's realities at the local level.
Thank you very much, Madam, for your question. First and foremost, I just want to highlight that the celebration of this year's Africa Day of Decentralization, regional local governance, is centered around the theme which is reflecting, or perhaps put it in straight, more on the circumstances of local governments, the situations that affect them. In one way or the other, it's also a recognition of the fact that the emphasis on the resilience of local governments is a recognition of the fact that they are not immune to challenges, be they of economic, natural, or political nature. Most importantly, that they have to adopt strategies that will help them to emerge and survive out of such circumstances and through such circumstances through institutionalized programs and strategies. This year we are going to join the entire African continent in commemoration of this day, and this is going to be hosted at Nkurenkuru town in the Kabango West region, where we are going to reflect on the challenges that are affecting subnational governments in particular, and how those institutions at that level have to position themselves.
Thank you so much. Considering the theme of resilience and local development, which you just touched on, which specific areas, still require attention in Namibia's decentralization efforts?
I'm not getting you very clearly. Your line sounds very faint.
You mentioned, of course, that there's a theme of resilience and local development. And I was asking, in terms of this theme, which specific areas still require attention in Namibia's decentralization efforts?
In that respect, I want to say that government has implemented quite a number of initiatives, particularly to ensure the decentralization and transfer of functions from central government institutions to subnational government level. And in this respect, in as much as we have made some strides, we recognize the fact that our decentralization policy framework provides for a phased approach, which starts with the delegation phase and has to ultimately be fully implemented through a devolved phase. So far, all that has been done under the delegation phase. So that is one phase or lap of our program that has to be implemented to ensure that we transition from the delegation phase into the devolution phase, where we are going to give greater discretion and authority to subnational governments and more powers to perform functions that will impact the lives of the citizens. Over and above that, we recognize the fact that there are certain aspects which are important and are continuous in nature. And these include issues that relates to capacity building. Recognize the need for continuous empowerment in terms of creating capacity at subnational level. This is through our regional and local authorities to ensure that at all times they are in a position to execute the responsibilities entrusted to them, and more so to serve the needs of our local communities. One aspect perhaps which is also critical is that when we are talking about resilience, it includes and encompasses aspects of ensuring that these subnational government structures are empowered in all areas. And most importantly, when it comes to financial empowerment, this calls in the aspect of fiscal decentralization, in which case we also endeavor to design and implement mechanisms that will ensure sustainable and yet adequate provision of financial resources by central government, and also creating environment through policy frameworks that will enable these subnational governments to be able to be more sustaining by creating avenues through which they can raise also some own resources.
Thank you.
So these are some of the issues or areas that we continue to look at, and more so encouraging the aspect of public participation to ensure that local communities, particularly the young people who aspire so much and who are still the future of this country, actively participate in the development at that level, so that they are not only socially empowered, but also economically empowered.
Mr. Sikabongo, unfortunately, we're out of time. Just your brief and final remarks. Mr. Sikabongo, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you, but quite faintly.
I was saying, unfortunately, we are out of time. Just your brief and final remarks this evening.
Thank you very much. Maybe I can just conclude by saying that government, through the decentralization reform program, is quite committed and intent in ensuring that Namibians, particularly at local level, are provided with the opportunities that will enable them to prosper, and also to ensure that through established subnational government structures, there is an inclusive environment through which all citizens are able to participate in their own development and are also given equal opportunities. The celebration of this year, and particularly when focusing on the theme, it's a very important reminder that we have to continuously assess our local circumstances and also ensure that at all times we have got appropriate strategies that will enable us to surf through all circumstances through this dynamic world. We have seen tremendous changes and challenges that have been coming as a result of climate change. All these issues are issues that we have to be prepared for. We have seen issues that affect our lives in the form of drought, which have affected and continue to affect so many of our communities at local and regional level. It's very imperative that our subnational government structures, particularly regional council and local authorities, adopt strategies and the policies and also initiatives that help their local citizens to counter or survive through these circumstances.
We appreciate your time this evening and joining us here on the Daily Roundup. Thank you, sir.
You are welcome.
Oh, when we come back, it's almost time to say goodbye, but not before we speak to Brittle Paper's Writer of the Month, Nande Kamati. Stay with us.